Welcome to the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside Louisville, Kentucky, and in Maryland, the land of pleasant living, the old line state. John Webster, my longtime friend, esteemed colleague, and great basketball coach and mentor.
Gary, you're way too kind, my friend. Way too kind. But how you doing, man? Everything going good for you?
Oh yeah, yep. We're getting into that nitty gritty of college football. College basketball has started up here, and it's a glorious time. And of course, my Boston Celtics are playing tonight, so I'm gonna watch that in a little bit. So, how you doing?
Man, got no complaints. No complaints at all, man. Another great week in sports. And before we get started, John Pitt, how you doing, man?
Good, man. So we're halfway through the NFL season. So I think we know a little bit more about who's who. Excited.
What a great segue, Pitt. Thanks for that. Straight into the NFC East. They got a team here called the Washington Commanders, Gary.
Mm-hmm.
They won another game this past week. They beat the G-Men. They beat the New York Giants, man. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, to go up there and win a game, I caught the tail end of that. They broadcast the tail end of that game here. It was impressive, and to me, to go up there, I'm getting a little bit closer to believing that they're for real. It's you got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat. And it wasn't too long ago that was a game. In fact, last year, in fact, before Jaden Daniels arrived, that was a game that they would go up there and lose, and sometimes lose badly.
Well, they played a decent game. Brian Robson didn't play, so they had Rodriguez and Ekelar in the backfield. They pounded that ball, still getting yards. Cliff Kingsbury again called a splendid game. Great balance between the run and the pass. Jaden Daniels, what can you say about the guy? Played another great game again. The defense, like we've been saying, is shaky. But this week, they made a move to shore up their defensive backfield. They they traded for Marshawn Lattimore from the New Orleans Saints. That should help. He is a number one corner. As you and I talked about before, Gary, that moves St. Jude to a 2 or a 3. Sure, still will be a 3. And I think that strengthens their defensive backfield. Lattimore is quite a player, former All-Pro. So I think that's going to help them. They still need a rushing in, but you can't get everything this year. I think some of the things they need are going to have to be found in the offseason, either through free agency, trade, or draft.
Yeah.
But
speaking of free agency, I can't remember where I read it. Of course, I saw it on social media, so I knew it was true. But apparently, the pending free agents in the NFL supposedly want to come to play for Washington, which I never thought I would read. I mean, it was from a legitimate source too, from what I could tell. That's one that really kind of surprised me for I'll say a team with a first year staff, a first year quarterback. That speaks volumes about where the culture is, maybe with that Gary say program. Been covering colleges too long, but with the Washington organization, and I guess again a culture change, and obviously a philosophy change, and of course being 7-2 helps. What's your take on that? If you've heard the same thing.
I think it's good that people want to come here, but I think you need to be very selective in who you have come here. Everybody wants to come here, but you don't want everybody, and you don't need everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to lose track of how they're building this team through their own hard work of free agency, trades, and drafts. And when I say free agency, I'm not talking about mega stars. I'm talking about plugging the whole type of free agent. This is a team that is put together quite a dynamic and are very unified. You don't need to bring anything in that's going to mess with your chemistry.
Yeah. One thing I've seen the past couple of weeks with games that we've gotten here is that there's that saying, is it the whole or the whole of the sum of its parts? And I think they are greater than the sum of their parts. We, of course, Jaden Daniels and Chris Rodriguez, Brian Robinson, Terry McLaurin, guys like that. They've got a lot of stars. You know more of the defense than I do, but from what I can see, it's a team that really, that first game, since that first game, they seem to have gelled, or they seem to be gelling. They seem to kind of buy into what Jaden Daniels can do, what he wants to do, and what the offensive coordinator wants to do. And I'm speaking strictly for from the offensive side. The defensive side, I think you're right. I think it is a work in progress. But again, John, looking at the improvement, that it's going to be a process to make it quote unquote perfect, if such a thing exists in the NFL. I just like where the team is going. That yes, they can score enough points, and say the best defense is sometimes a good offense, but they come up and make the stops when they need to. That's the one thing. That's what I can see. Your thoughts on that one?
Well, the defense, I still say is a defense in works. I think they're a year away still. You got Lattimore, that's going to help, but I still think you need to address getting a lineman, an edge rusher.
Mhm.
I like where they got Luvu, Fowler. They're tough. They come at you. They hit you hard. The whole group they're really tough. They play very hard and they tackle you. You know you've been tackled with this group. They're just they're playing very hard and giving it all they got, but they still need a few more pieces on that defense. Another example, this past week they played the Giants. Every time they play the Giants, they make Daniel Jones look like Y.A. Tittle or Phil Simms. Every time. I mean, you think he's getting ready to go to the Hall of Fame when he plays against the Commanders. But I mean, he had another great passing day. He ran in for a touchdown. He always plays well against the Commanders. Always.
And some guys tend to in the NFL tend to have better games against certain teams. It's kind of like in basketball, and where you have matchup problems or matchup challenges, and yeah, you might have more talent, but sometimes a team just gives you fits for what they do. And from what you tell me about this team that's been cobbled together, for lack of a better term, there's still a lot of guys on that squad that don't know Daniel Jones. And I'm going to say this, and yes, I'm going to say it with a straight face. There's still something there in Daniel Jones that makes him, I'll say, a workable quarterback, a serviceable quarterback. That's the term that goes for some signal callers, that they don't have to be stars. They have to be quote unquote game managers. Sometimes, they just have to get the job done. We used to say that about Kirk Cousins, right?
Yeah, Kirk Cousins, and that's a nice segue into the Atlanta Falcons, who played the Dallas Cowboys. Kirk Cousins played a great game, not a game manager game, but a great game. And the Cowboys, I just don't understand, Gary. They are what, 3-5 now? I mean, don't was it the Giants are 2-7? I think they're 3-5 and going nowhere fast. Dak Prescott hurt his hamstring. He's out for a few weeks.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and then this week, the Cowboys made a trade, not as a fire sale, but a trade to upgrade because Jerry Jones still thinks they have a chance to get in the playoffs.
God bless Jerry Jones. That's all I can really say on that.
Mm-hmm.
When you've got the kind of injuries they have on the defensive side, and again, that's kind of been their bread and butter. But between Parsons, I mean that's a loss that's just hard to make up for in any any situation, and that's where I think with the Cowboys, I don't think that they're done. Well, I think they're done for this season, but as a franchise, again, there's still some gas left in the tank for lack of a better term. But I think at this point, you are starting to look toward next year and figuring out how to get some depth in there. You might have to unload some guys. It's just not working with Jerry and what I'm about to say, this is my opinion. I can't really base it on anything else but what my gut tells me. Just like in Washington, I think you reach a point where you're just tired of the owner, where the owner is tired of you. Jerry Jones, yeah, he got those Super Bowls in the 90s, but that was the 90s. That magic that he thinks he can work, that, it's only worked, like, say, in certain situations, most of it those first few years. But of course, he thought he was a better coach than Jimmy Johnson. And we know how that went. Yeah, you won another Super Bowl under Barry Switzer, but you really haven't sniffed the Super Bowl since. And we're talking about 30 some years now, almost. And that it's just like they've hit a wall. Dak Prescott was a great pickup for him, but he's getting hurt more often than he's playing. I don't know, even if he comes back, you're talking about a team that'll probably be something like 3-8, maybe 3-9. And it might be time, for Jerry to consider new ownership. He won't do it, but this is what I think he should do. And I think that's the feeling around Dallas too.
Bite your tongue, Gary Graves. Oh my goodness. New ownership in Dallas. What would Jerry do with his free time?
Metal. That's it. I mean, that's what he does well. Guys that feel like they know more than the football people, they never go anywhere. And in Jerry's case, the reason why I say he won't sell because he's got the Taj Mahal of football stadiums.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Dallas Cowboys are worth like what, billions. I mean, they're still the highest valued franchise in pro sports outside of the New York Yankees, I guess. He won't do it, but he's not going to win another Super Bowl. I'm safe in saying that. He struggles in the locker room to try to come up with an explanation for what happened in the game, what's wrong, how to fix it. I just think again, it's almost like The Simpsons being on the air for almost 40 years. They've run out of ideas.
Well, we'll see what's going to happen with them. They're 3-5 in third place, only ahead of the New York Giants, and in second place, that other team in the NFC East, the Philadelphia Eagles, seem to be finding their groove. They beat Jacksonville last weekend.
Yeah, with probably the play of the century by Saquon Barkley. And what I like about Philly is they're another team that realizes you got to run the ball. If you've got a running back like Saquon Barkley, don't let him languish. Don't try to do anything too fancy. Just do what he does. Just allow him to do what he does best. And most importantly, take some of the pressure off of Jalen Hurts because Jalen Hurts was doing too much. He still feels like he's got to do something because that's what he's used to. But Saquon Barkley provides that buffer. If you focus on him, that's when Hurts can burn you in other ways. If you focus too much on Jalen Hurts, well, we know what Saquon Barkley can do. So it's a nice 1-2 punch, and it's becoming more of a 1-2 punch as opposed to, say, Jalen Hurts feeling like the offense runs through him. Now you can preserve yourself. You can hand the ball off and move the chains, or to use your term, John, matriculate down the field.
Well, to wrap up this segment, the Commanders have 3 games coming up: Pittsburgh Steelers, Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Cowboys. Those 3 games can go a long way to determining where the Commanders will be for the rest of the season.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I think they can weather this segment pretty, fairly well. I would dare say that they probably will win or can win 2 out of 3. But if they go 1-2, what's the worst? They'll be 8-4.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think anybody in Washington will take that at this point.
Well said, my friend. Well said. Now we're going to talk about some NCAA football. Your favorite rankings came out this week. What are your thoughts on this first college football playoff rankings?
Well, I mean, I do think that it does kind of follow our AP top 25, which I'm happy with. Well, heck, I mean that's what they use to determine some of this, give or take a few spots anyway. So it's kind of reflective of our own rankings, and the top 4 between Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, and Miami in that order. I think it's the way that that it should be. I wrote a story about Miami and SMU, which is seated just outside at 13, being as surprises. But of course, there are 5 ACC teams in this initial ranking, which says something about the ACC and its depth, which we wouldn't have said a year ago when it was just 4 spots. What I like about this ranking, what I like about this expanded field, is that it is more representative of college football than, say, 4 teams. And in looking at this, it makes me wonder, why in the heck didn't you come up with this, to begin with? Everybody was so worried about having December, games on campus and whether it was going to cut into, whatever income they thought they were going to make off of bowl games. If you're any one of these host schools and that's hosting first round games, you're gonna make money off of it because December football is what you want. That's what you play for. That's what you live for. So, the top 4, yeah, they'll get buys, but the other teams, I think they have a chance to make some noise. The team that I really want to watch and see how 2 teams actually. Indiana and Texas. Texas is number 5. I think Texas still has some of its best football left to play. Indiana, of course, that's a story out here because nobody expected that team to be 9-0, and nobody knows how good they can be. And they have to play. Well, they still have the meat of their Big Ten schedule left. I think there's a meeting against Ohio State coming up in one of these weeks. But those are the 2 teams that I really, really want to watch just to see, one, how Texas responds and tries to make it a little bit tighter in the SEC, and then Indiana to see whether they indeed are for real by going 10-0.
Oh, let me ask you something about Indiana. Is Indiana the kind of team, they're 9-0 right now. Coach Cignetti's doing a wonderful job with them. But are they the kind of team that if they lose to Ohio State, they fall out of the top 12?
No,
You think
they won't
stay?
fall. Yeah, I think they stay. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the strength of schedule alone, I think, keeps them in there. And a loss to Ohio State is, I mean, that there are worse schools you can lose to. I mean, it isn't like say Maryland losing to Northwestern or somebody. I'm trying to think of who else they lost to in the Big Ten. You,
Minnesota last weekend.
yeah. So yeah, Minnesota. But yeah, it's like if you're Indiana, you're getting some run. Yeah, you've got eyeballs. You've got New Year's Day bowl representatives showing up at your game. You can't lose to the teams you're supposed to be. That's the only thing I can say. If you lose to an Ohio State or even a Michigan, which is in transition, as yeah, and that's a kind way to put it. Um, that still could be considered a quality loss. But I want to see how they compete against the teams that they used to lose to on an annual basis.
Which one of these top 12 teams can you foresee falling out of this playoff?
Alabama. Um, they've got no room for error. They play LSU on Saturday night. The loser of that game, I think, for all intents and purposes, are they're done in terms of the playoff because you're talking about three losses, you're talking about three SEC losses, and even if you recover over these next couple of games, that it still looks like it's going through Texas A&M and Georgia, for the championship game. Again, yeah, you still have to look at Texas as well, and it's just too much of a hill to climb for either one of those schools. Tennessee can't really afford another loss either, even though they're in at number 7. It's just what we've said before about this expanded playoffs, that the way college football is, yeah, I don't know if you're going to have too many undefeated teams. I mean, there are 5 teams in D1 that are unbeaten. Miami is one of them, and Miami, I don't even know if they've played their best ball. The real test for them might be when they face SMU, because you've got 2 dynamic quarterbacks in Cam Ward, the likely Heisman Trophy winner in my opinion, and Kevin Jennings, who'll probably be in that discussion next year. If they can run the table and get to Charlotte, that will, the winner, of course, gets a first round bye, but you've got another team that can really, really make noise. And of course, let's not forget Clemson. Clemson has one league loss. They've got two overall losses after losing to Louisville. But one loss, all it takes is like a loss by either SMU or Miami, and you got a 3-way tie. And let's not forget Pittsburgh, which is 17. Let's see. Let me just they're 18.
Pittsburgh is 18. Pittsburgh's 18.
Pittsburgh's 18. They only have one loss, but they've got a ton of ACC games left to play, including a game here in a couple of weeks against Louisville. Louisville is starting to find itself after that little lull they went through in mid-season. That game can go either way. I'm not talking up Louisville to be in any kind of ACC or playoff talk. I'm just happy, really, for the ACC that you have this many teams that we are discussing. But in terms of the SEC, no room for error for Alabama or LSU or even Tennessee.
You know who is, I'm happy for them. They're doing well this year. Had a lot of naysayers. Colorado Buffaloes.
Oh, yeah.
And they're sitting in a position, Gary, where if things fall a certain way, they could be playing for the Big 12 championship.
Yep, that is true. And, what haven't we heard here lately about Colorado?
Go ahead. What you got?
We haven't heard a word out of Dion, which tells me he's happy when they're losing. Oh, excuse me. He's happy when they're winning. He's quiet when they're winning. He's noisy when they're losing. And, he's trying to prove the doubters wrong. But have you heard a peep out of him other than a commercial that he's made?
Well, I have to admit to you, I kind of watch him on some different segments, but I agree with what you're saying. I think when they lose, I think he likes to put a lot of the onus on himself. So he may say a few more things because he doesn't want the kids to have as much pressure. But I'm happy for him. I think I think they are doing a wonderful job over there. They have a Heisman Trophy candidate in Travis Hunter. I know you say Cam Ward is your pick, but that kid can really play, Gary. Travis Hunter, he's playing on both sides of the ball, about 120 plays a game. That's something. Shador Sanders is getting really good protection this year, and he's getting some good passes to his receivers. I think one of them named Horn that go along with Travis Hunter, and also they got the running game going, Gary. That helps you when you want to get that pass going because you got to respect the run. And like I said, they're sitting right now at about, what is it, 21? I think it's about 20. They're sitting at 20.
20.
And they play Texas Tech this week. They still got Utah on the schedule. The end of the season at Oklahoma State. And Kansas State still has to play. Kansas State still has to play Iowa State. And things could shake a certain way, and they could end up playing for that Big 12 championship.
Yeah. I like what he's done, and it's funny to me how far they've come since that first game. Where remember we thought that they were exposed. Guess what? Was that where they played? Not Boise.
The first game they played North Dakota State, and
That's
then they
right,
played
North
Nebraska.
Dakota State. Yeah, which was the FCS champion, and they made them play their game, and we thought, well, rinse and repeat from last year, but they really have gotten it together. Like you said, the pass protection is there for Shador Sanders. They've got a little bit more defense, to go around Travis Hunter. You mentioned Hunter, and I forgot to mention him as a Heisman hopeful. But what about Shador Sanders being in that discussion? I think he's earned some consideration.
I agree, man. It's one thing for sure. We got some exciting things coming along with this college football. It's very, 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 very thought provoking and exciting. But now let's talk a little bit about. We didn't get a chance last week to say anything. The Los Angeles Dodgers won the World Series. Congratulations to them. They beat that team called the New York Yankees.
The team you love to hate.
I can't say much, Gary. They got that. Orioles have not got that. So I respect that. I want the Orioles to get there. But what can you say for a team that gets to the World Series and loses? They got further than what my Orioles did, and the Dodgers, they're tough, man. Oh, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Muncy, my Edmund. I mean, they just they just keep coming at you, man.
Yeah.
Walker Buehler as a pitcher, he comes in and saves the game. It's just they're just something else.
Kentucky guy. Yeah. Walker Buehler and Will Smith. Yeah, both Kentucky guys.
And don't forget Ohtani, Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Dave Roberts used his bench well. He played situations about as well. He went with his gut. I'm sure there was probably a moment where he went with analytics, but he went with his gut, and it really paid off. What I was most impressed with the clincher was it wasn't just that they came back from a 5-0 deficit. It was how they did it, and they were patient. In all of the games that they trailed in, they were patient about getting guys on base, moving them over. Of course, it helps when you get 3 errors in one inning, including an error by Aaron Judge, who, that was his first error all year, if you can believe that. And something about the baseball gods, they looked at that and it's just like, okay, you're going to pay for that. And one flub led to another one. There was a fielding error, and then Garrett Cole forgets to cover
Cover first
first, and
base. Yeah.
yeah, and having played baseball, I always feel like you make one mistake that opens a door for something bad to happen. You make two mistakes, the floodgates open. But if you make three, it's a wrap. And that's one that you can't do that against the Dodgers. And again, even after the Yankees went back ahead, I guess it was what 6-5 or I guess they won, what was it, 7-6. But even when they went back ahead, they just kept plugging away. And you got to give Dave Roberts credit. I know he gets a lot of criticism for teams that didn't do what they did last week. But again, that's baseball. It is really hard to win a World Series these days with free agency and analytics, and everybody going by pitch counts and all that, war and such. But that was just some old school baseball. And Freddie Freeman, he's an old school guy. I couldn't have been happier for him, even though it was still a little hard for me to grasp him in Dodger blue as opposed to playing for the Braves. But again, that was a couple of years ago, so yeah, I should be used to it. But that was a series where that guy, he just seized his moment. And that's what makes him the kind of player that he is. And we weren't even talking about the whole thing about him, having his Kirk Gibson moment, because he ran well for the rest of that series, if you recall.
You're right. I mean, he's a heck of a player. Had some challenges he got through this season, and personal family issues as well as injuries. I just think the world of the guy. He's a class act. But you mentioned seizing the opportunity. Let me ask you, we'll wrap up with this subject. Can Alex Ovechkin seize the opportunity and get the goal record this year from Wayne Gretzky? Talk to me,
Watson,
Mr. Hockey.
yeah, okay. I think he's got a good chance. I really do. I've heard a couple other Washington personalities say that he will do it. I think he can do it. I watched the game against Philly last week where he scored those first two goals, and I mean I saw an Ovechkin that looked kind of like the Ovechkin of like 6 years ago when they won the Stanley Cup. That he seems to have found another gear. I don't know whether it is because he's motivated to do it, but I think he's got a really good chance. And even if he doesn't break it this year, it's probably coming sometime next year. He's going to hang around till he breaks it. And in all honesty, I'm surprised he's as close as he is now, because we're only talking maybe a year and a half ago where it seemed like he was, what, 100 goals away, and here he is now, what, within 35, something like that. I mean, the number is dwindling from a record that I thought was unbreakable, to be honest.
Yeah, it's one of those, but they always say records are made to be broken. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
So. Yeah, yeah. Speaking of the Caps, I saw an item where they're going to wear their old school uniforms, the jerseys from like their first year, with Mike Marson and Ivan LeBray, and
Rob Langway.
Yep, yeah, Rob Langway, those classic throwbacks. You know how I feel about throwback uniforms, and even though I like the ones that the variation of that original uniform, that when you bring out the old ones, that just seems to get a little something, something out of that team. I'm not a fan of the gold and the teal like they wore in the late '90s, but. Again, this is their 50th anniversary season, so bring out whatever you got to do, whatever you got to wear.
I'll tell you a secret, Gary. I think I got that jersey. I may pull it out for you.
Which one? One of those gold jerseys?
No. I'm
No,
talking about
no.
one of the originals with the stars around the hockey stick.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah,
pull those out. I'm gonna pull it out. Hey
yeah.
man, time is gone for us again, man. I don't know where it goes. Take us home, Gary.
All right, folks. We've got plenty of sports, as we always do. NBA, there's a glut of college basketball now that, this is the first week of the season, and now we're getting into that stretch run for college football. We're going to start determining how this college football playoff is going to set up. Of course, the game that I look forward to every year, Michigan and Ohio State. I don't know if John is looking forward to it in a few weeks, but this is the time of year that I live for, rivalry month. So, folks, there's plenty of sports to watch. Take your mind off your everyday problems. Take your mind off of society and where we're at right now, and come on back and see us. Watch us on YouTube. Watch us on Facebook, and we will email you a link.
Hey, everybody. Another great week in sports. Watch some more sports with us this week. You got the NHL, like Gary was just talking about with Ovechkin. You got the NBA. They on fire right now. You got the Celtics playing the Golden State tonight. You got a lot of NBA games coming up. The NCAA season's getting ready to heat up both on the women's side and the men's side for basketball. Football, NCAA football. NFL football, unbelievable games going on, unbelievable games. And don't forget soccer as well. But all in all, just watch some sports and come back and see us. Take care.